Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in Rochester at the Rochester United Methodist Church, standing in their congregational garden. This garden's been here for 4 or 5 years, and the produce from this garden goes to feed the senior citizens here in the congregation and also to the Central Illinois Food Bank. So during this program, we'll get a tutorial on early season gardening. We'll get a tour of the new building that the food bank is moving into, and we'll talk to some of those seniors who get to eat the wonderful produce that comes from this garden. Well, Dan, let's start our conversation with what a slow, late spring it's been, huh?
Well, I really think it's been very nearly as abnormally cold this year as it was warm last year.
Yeah, I remember last year. My goodness, it was like in the 80s.
Last year when we came back from our vacation down south at the end of March, it was already warm, plenty warm enough to put everything in the ground. Mm-hmm. My raspberries and blackberries
I can unfold this for you.
Were blooming fantastically.
That rose has got it.
Yeah.
There we go.
This year I have been able to have enough warm days that I've gotten the seeds into the ground, and they're coming up. Mm-hmm. But they've been very slow, and I'm just hoping, well, we should be starting to get some warm weather real soon, and that should get things going.
Now, these little seedlings that you're putting this fence next to, what are these?
These are snow peas. Uh-huh. Snow peas are the ones where you harvest them before the seeds get big, because you eat the pods, you know. Mm-hmm. They're used in salads, in cooking, and they're something that goes in very early in the year, and they grow as vines. They don't support themselves. That's why we put the fence here to...
okay, so they'll climb. They like to
they'll climb
put on little
the fence.
Tendrils and climb on there.
Yes.
And then the pods hang, mm-hmm. and you pick them. Yep. And they like cold weather. So once it gets midsummer, what happens?
They're a cool weather thing, and yes, that's why we get them in as early as possible, and so that they're up before it gets real hot. Mm-hmm. I'll try them again in fall after it gets hot. Last 2 years I've done that. The days haven't stayed long enough in terms of daylight for the pods to form very much. Mm-hmm. It hasn't been successful in fall. Yeah. By the time it gets cool enough to do them, the peas really like the lengthening days to produce the pods, which is in spring. Mm-hmm. And in fall, when the days are shortening, they don't work as well then. But I try them every fall. You know,
as we go through this program, and we're looking at this garden in the very beginning stages, we're going to show pictures of your garden mm-hmm. last year in midsummer and in the fall, and people get a look at how plentiful and just what the fruition of this place was. You really got mm-hmm. a pretty good garden here. This really produces, doesn't it?
It didn't at first. Mm-hmm. You know, the ground needed work, and I'm not certified organic, USDA certified organic, mm-hmm. but I'm organic. Yeah. I've managed to build the soil up with a lot of manure and compost, mm-hmm. and the last 2 years has been very productive, yes. If you
would you walk around here with me, and we're going to show what you have coming up here. We've already showed the peas here, and some of this, everything in this quadrant of your garden is cold weather stuff, right?
Yes.
And this is, you can see this got a pretty good start here.
It could be better. It could be better.
Well, if it were warmer, probably.
Right. Yeah. Well, like last year, for instance, by May 1st, we were eating stuff out of the garden. Yeah. You know.
Yeah. That's not going to happen this year.
Yeah, but last year was several weeks early. This year is going to be a couple weeks late. Fortunately, we have a long growing season. It should still be okay.
Yeah. What are these 2 rows? These bright green.
The first 2 rows are... Now I forget.
You told me earlier.
I know, I did.
It's not like you don't know.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on. We'll come back to this.
Oh, yeah, okay. The first 2 rows are leaf lettuce. It's actually black Simpson.
The bright green on the left here.
Right.
This is leaf lettuce.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And then lettuce, of course, likes cold weather, so it starts coming up early, right?
The next 3 rows are turnips. Now, mm-hmm. turnips I usually do better in the fall because, again, they don't like the hot weather, and I've had some problems with them when they're not fully developed when the weather gets hot. This particular variety gets mature, gets the full turnip formed much quicker than the normal ones. So I use this variety. It's called Tokyo Cross in the spring.
And then we get to another a couple of bright green.
This is romaine lettuce, green romaine lettuce.
Okay.
These two are red romaine lettuce.
The love romaine lettuce.
It's very popular.
Yeah, and they grow up in like big tight bunches, don't they?
Yes, yes.
Oop, I'm on some onions here.
And the next two rows, the first row is kale, and the next row is Swiss chard. These are extremely healthy green leafy plants. Not very popular with the people.
Really, even with the seniors that come here to eat your potluck, the kale's not a big seller. Huh?
They go for the lettuce and the spinach. The little bit stranger greens I pretty much have to myself.
Okay.
Then we have three rows of radishes. Now this should be the very first thing that matures in spring, and these have been in the ground for 2.5 weeks, and normally 3 to 4 weeks.
You'll start to see the red bulb pretty soon, won't you?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Need
Again,
a little warm weather.
They haven't done much.
Need a little warm weather.
The next 3 rows are spinach.
Okay.
That's another cool weather leafy green, which is extremely popular. The spinach, when the weather gets hot, it's done.
And it gets real bitter, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I have found a couple of 2 or 3 things that are alternative to spinach that can be used as spinach but thrive in the hot weather. And I'll be putting those in pretty soon to get them going for when the spinach gets done. I use something called Egyptian spinach, which is technically not a spinach. It grows in a pretty big bush, and you use the leaves like spinach. I'm going to try some amaranth this year. That does well in the heat, and it is very similar to spinach. So I try and have the greens through the summer that way. I have a variety of lettuce that's called oak leaf lettuce that does better in the heat than regular lettuce, and I'm going to be putting some of that in pretty soon.
Some of this is you've got netting this to grow up through netting.
These are carrots. Carrots are a very small, lightweight seed that you plant very close to the surface, and it takes a long time to germinate, 2 or 3 weeks, whereas the others are usually up in a week. And in that amount of time, a lot can happen to the seeds. They can blow away on a dry, windy weather. They can be washed away in a heavy rain. And I find that putting the burlap over the top of them till they come up has been very successful for me. I've had very good crops of carrots where people have said, oh, carrots are really difficult to.
Those are probably a favorite too of
the
food bank and the seniors.
They are very.
You probably don't get many
popular.
of those yourself, right?
Yeah, very popular.
And then you've got see this row of onions. You've got this all around the perimeter.
There are onions
and all over the place.
There are actually I've put in between here and the garden in my yard probably 1,000 onions.
Wow.
And they go around the perimeter because to some extent onions, garlic, those kind of things are somewhat of a repellent for insects. And when I'm not using any kind of poison, anything I can do that'll help, that's what I look for.
Now you've got something called a cold box that I had not heard of, a cold frame. Let's go over there and see what you've got going there.
This I used last fall. A member of the church built it for me last fall. And I use this to extend the growing season for some cool weather things in fall, where they would not have lasted as long. It took them into the winter.
Okay, so it's like a little greenhouse.
Yes, the glass on top with the enclosure, of course, and it faces south.
Yeah.
Slanted. It it naturally warms up inside. I have not been able to use it as much as I expected this year because we haven't had many sunny days.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes. It takes the sunshine.
What do you have started here?
These are cabbage and broccoli.
Okay, which is which?
Okay, this one's cabbage.
Cabbage on the right.
And then the other one's broccoli.
Why they look similar?
They do. They're the same family. And many things look look alike when they first start out.
Yeah, even tricked you on those first 2 rows.
Yes, that's right. So any day now, I'll start setting these out in the garden.
And as we have 3/4, actually 3/4 of this garden hasn't even been touched yet.
That's
This
right.
is for warm weather stuff that's going to go in.
One of the reasons this last section over here, we just opened up last fall. One of the old farmers of the church, he comes around with his tractor and he breaks the ground for me to start, and then I
that's
go
nice.
through with a tiller.
So you don't have to roto-till everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason I open the ground is, it's a lot of work for me, but I saw that there were several things that are very popular with people. They take up a lot of space, but they don't really require a lot of work between putting them in and taking them out. Broccoli and cabbage are 2 of those things.
Yeah.
They're very popular, but it takes a great big plant to produce 1 clump of cabbage or broccoli.
Yeah.
Now, once you harvest the first one, if you're lucky, you get a few more afterwards, but they take up a lot of space and people love them, Potatoes, sweet potatoes, I'm going to do a lot more of those this year than I did before, and they take up a lot of space.
Yeah.
The cantaloupe, I love cantaloupe. Cantaloupe is, to me, it's like, of all the miracles in the garden, a cantaloupe is the most
How could
miraculous.
anything that good, that tastes that good, come out of dirt? Right?
Yeah. I mean, it's all miracles, but cantaloupe, I just love them. So I plant those and people love them too. But again, they're vines that spread all over the place. And so as I sit here and think about everything I want to put in, I think I need more space than this. I don't know where everything is going to go. I mean, I've got tomatoes and peppers that are going in here. Okra takes up a lot of space. Now, that isn't very popular, but I insist on doing it anyway.
Well, thanks for the visit. This is terrific, and congratulations on helping so many people out. Kaylee, friend, what do you got in your hands?
Well, we've got a couple of things here from last year's garden, since there's not so much growing right now. It looks like we've got some pickle relish. We've also got some pickled beets.
Here, let's hold that up for a little bit. Boy, those are beautiful, aren't they? Look at the color.
And Carol had said this was her great-grandmother's recipe, so there's a lot of tradition associated with this garden as well. And that's
Carol Strick is Dan's wife, right? And
yes.
so she does the canning and the pickling and all that. Okay.
Yes, we've got some pickle relish there, and then we've also got some cucumber relish, which is something that's kind of new to me. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
I haven't had that either.
Yeah, but it looks delicious.
And what'll happen is, I mean, like I said, none of this will grow here, but this summer cucumbers love the heat.
Absolutely.
And they'll have just rows and rows and rows of cucumbers because they grow out of control. And then of course they can't give it all away. The seniors can't eat it all, and the food bank probably can't eat it all. So they do this in the fall, which is a terrific thing to do.
Yes, very smart.
But you're with the Central Illinois Food Bank, and you're one of the beneficiaries of the produce that comes from this garden.
We are. We're very lucky. Dan is one of a handful of people who has a garden like this, where they have a little extra that the seniors don't use, and they bring it over to the food bank. So we have the resources there to keep that cold, to make sure it's going to the agencies who can use it quickly so it doesn't spoil. And we're just very fortunate to have fresh produce like this, because it's so nutritious. It's the things that are expensive at the grocery store, and it's the food that we want people to be eating.
Yeah, and the only real setback for you is, I mean, you have lots of space, but not a lot of refrigerator space. So.
Right.
While you love to have this stuff, you really do have to turn it over, don't you?
Absolutely. It has to move very, very quickly. And most of the time it does, but that's one of the obstacles we face in our facility that we've been in for 25 years. We're very limited in that cold storage, and we're very much looking forward to moving into a new facility where that won't be such a problem.
Your new facility will have more cold storage.
Yes.
So more fresh produce, and we're going to get a chance to tour that new facility later in this program. Now, you're not moved in yet, but it won't be long, right?
Right. Not much longer. I would say probably at the end of May we'll be moving in. So it'll take some time. The freezers have to get running. We have to get all of our food inventoried and moved over. So it's a big process, but it should go fairly quickly once we get started.
How many people like Dan in our viewing area, Central Illinois, do you have that have a garden like this and then make contributions to the food bank?
Well, Dan is actually one of a very small group of people who do this type of thing. We have the Farm Services Garden in Springfield, which helps a lot. They have a very large garden. But as for our smaller projects like this one, they're kind of few and far between, and we'd like to see more get going. It's a great way for the community to help the people who need the food assistance locally, whether it be seniors, whether it be kids. You know, growing a garden and cooking and doing things like canning, that's not something we often learn in school anymore. So to see people who are doing it on their own, that's really inspiring.
Yeah, and we're not growing up on the farm anymore like we did, you know, 2 generations ago, where this was just typical. I mean, this is how you lived.
Absolutely.
And now people don't have those skills. They don't have the access to the produce, so they don't eat the produce.
Right.
Yeah. So people like Dan and other community, I call them community gardeners. I don't know if they like that term or not, but community gardens that make food available to people that can't grow it or wouldn't have it otherwise. That's neat.
It is. It's very neat, and it's a very important skill. And anytime we can see people giving back like this, that's something we really enjoy and hope to see more of.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, Carol, while Dan is slicing his homemade bread for the weekly senior luncheon here at the church, what's an interesting story is how this garden got started, I guess 4 or 5 years ago. It was like, oh, gee, we got to have a garden. It was like, you know, these older ladies here meet for the potluck, and many of them lamented the fact that they couldn't garden anymore. And you thought, well, what an opportunity, huh?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. I've always been interested in hearing their stories. And so as we talked more and more about gardens, and we do a lot with sharing recipes here and everything, we just thought, you know, there's so much ground here. The church has several acres and is not being used. And so we asked the church if we could have some land and to put it in. And so I consider them kind of our board of directors, because we ask the ladies what they want planted in the garden, and they're always happy to tell us. But it's been a good memory. They really, most of them can't even get out. They'll come out and look at it sometimes, let alone work in it. But Dan's their person, go-to person, and we've had to teach him how to eat a few things that we've never heard of. You know, one of the things he's teaching them to eat is one of his breads that he makes out of parsnips. Now that makes you probably pucker up, but it turned out to be good. But they share recipes. They were glad to have the garden. It's their garden. It's the Friday potluck garden. We have gone from there to share it so many places, though. It's become a real mission of the church, with the food bank particularly.
Yeah, that's terrific.
It's gone far beyond that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Arliss, we've just been out to the garden, and there's not much growing out there yet. It's been a cold spring, but pretty soon it'll be coming up pretty good.
And I'm looking forward to it.
You are?
Definitely.
Because it's pretty good produce, isn't it?
Oh, it's a marvelous time, yes. Yes, I look forward to it.
This group of ladies here meets every Friday?
Every Friday.
And you all have a potluck lunch?
Yes, it's a potluck.
And generally, there's something from the garden in your meal, I'll bet.
Yes, always, yes. And we've had different things, just really different things. Dan likes to try out different things, and he even cooks them, and so that's always neat.
Is that right? It's nice to have the man cook once in a while, isn't it?
It's always nice to have anybody cook.
You know, this whole thing started, I understand, because, you know, the property, the ground was there, and many of the older folks here had gardens and couldn't garden anymore. Were you one of those?
Yes. I enjoy gardening, but I really don't have a place for it anymore. I planted 2 blackberry bushes, and I'm looking for some rhubarb to plant this year, because I love rhubarb. But the big garden, no. And I used to have lots of flowers that I no longer have, because I'm physically just not able to take care of that anymore.
So it's kind of nice, isn't it, to be able to come in here and maybe take a bag of produce home with you?
It's marvelous to do that, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's your favorite thing that comes out of this garden?
The very favorite, I love the tomatoes. I love the, last year I took home lots of fresh spinach. The spinach was fabulous. I could eat it raw.
It's coming up now.
It.
It's coming up.
I really enjoy. And then he planted some kind of a thick-leafed lettuce late in the fall, and that was marvelous. He had me try turnips. I don't really care for turnips, but he had me try turnips last year, and they weren't strong, so they were. And I even took some turnips home.
So he's broadening your culinary experience a little bit, isn't he?
He's broadening everything. Yes.
That's terrific.
I've never eaten beet tops, and yes, he's, you know, we've even done that, yes.
Well,
So it's really
nice.
neat.
Yeah, it really is neat. And it's become, the garden's gotten bigger every year, and now
Yes.
even the food bank gets to benefit
Yes,
from it.
yes.
Yeah, it's terrific.
It is. It's a blessing in many ways.
Thank
Yes.
you.
You're very welcome. Dan's the one that we should say thank you to.
We sure should.
It's a lot of work.
We mentioned that some of the food from that garden and other gardens ends up at the Central Illinois Food Bank, and the food bank soon won't be where it has been for the last 25 years. Fortunately, you all are moving out of a cramped space over there, and here in your hour of need, Pepsi comes up with an empty warehouse. Isn't that fantastic?
That is wonderful, yes. Springfield Pepsi, the Falloon family, donated their former facility. They've moved over to a new location on Singer Street, so we are fortunate enough to have this building available to us as a food bank.
It's just incredible when you think about it. How much are you doubling, tripling your space?
We're about tripling our space here. There's room to grow. Of course, that's not what we want to do. We want to put ourselves out of a job, but it has room to grow should that opportunity arise.
Yeah, and they're doing the work inside right now to fit it so that it'll work for the food bank. And if you don't mind, can we get in where the workmen are working and take a look at what it's going to be like?
Yes, I'd love to show you around.
All right, let's go. Wow, Kaylee. We'll talk about space.
Yes, that's
There
a lot
was
of
a
space.
time not too long ago when it was full of Pepsi products. But now, I mean, you all have you're customizing for your needs now, huh?
Absolutely, and this building, it offers almost 3 times the space overall. We're going from 22,000 square feet to 56,000 square feet. So we have plenty of room for all of the products that in the past, we've been diverting over 1 million pounds of food each year to other regional food banks because we just didn't have the space for it.
Okay, so you had the demand for it. You needed the food to come into this area, but you couldn't store it all. So you'd divert it and then it would get delivered somehow or other. Through a circuitous kind of way that was probably a lot of work.
Yes, and you know, we work really hard to have the food that we do here, so to have to send it to another food bank, that really breaks our hearts.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Look at all this new shelving.
Yes.
Can't wait to fill it up, huh?
We can't wait. I'm sure it'll fill quickly, so lots of food to go to lots of people who really need it.
Now, we're in an area of the place, that's called dry storage, I guess?
Yes.
Okay, and we're in an area here which is, it's going to be called a cold dock?
Yes, this will be our cold dock. The trucks will come in here and unload the product. The truck doesn't have to stay until the unload is complete. This is something we couldn't do in our last building, so we're really looking forward to this new efficiency that'll really speed up the process.
And you have a lot of energy efficiency. The doors are automatic.
Yes.
It's almost like it new.
Yes.
The lights come on automatically, they're motion detected.
It's very important for us to be good stewards of our resources, so we're working hard to be energy efficient and things like that.
And there goes the door down again. Okay, now that's a refrigerated area right there for
Yes.
reefer trucks. And then we can walk right from there into the frozen food area.
That's right.
And also the refrigerated area.
Yes.
But you and I are going to walk around. We're going to go see that spot.
Okay.
Wow, brand new.
Yes.
Even smells new.
It
Not like a new
smells
car,
new.
but it smells new. Yeah.
Yes.
This will be all stocked to the ceiling with frozen foods, right?
Yes, we have a lot of frozen product. We're seeing a lot more of donations that are fresh or frozen in nature, so correspondingly we need to have the right type of storage. So increased freezer space was a huge priority for us when we moved into this facility.
Yeah. Some of the workmen are still here. They're still putting up the the finishing touches and everything. But this will be ready. This is nearly ready to go.
Very
and
close.
then on the outside of this, you said you have an L-shaped space for refrigerated.
We do. We have 2 different temperature zones because you want to store different products at different temperatures to increase the life of the product. So we have an area for dairy products, so your milk, your eggs, things like that. And then we also have a produce area so we can keep those hard-shelled things like apples and carrots and potatoes all at the correct temperature.
And don't forget the garden produce that comes in from the community gardens.
Produce.
That's
we
right.
want to make sure that's saved as well. So just really good way for us to be good stewards of our resources and be able to store them in the way that they should be.
Yeah, and you also have something that you haven't had before, which is a volunteer service area, right?
Yes, we've never had that before, and we've been limited to groups of 8 or less. So now we have a volunteer space where people can come in and sort product, they can clean
Well,
the
let's go take a
produce.
look.
Okay, great.
After you. Well, Kaylee, this would be your new entrance, your new hallway. People visiting the food bank would come in here, or employees would come in here. And you have some office space down there. You have some further office space down there. But we were talking about the volunteer space.
Yes.
And that's all this space in here.
Yes, this will be a lot of dry, miscellaneous product that needs to be sorted. We get a lot of these types of things from grocery stores, places like Dot Foods.
And we're talking about out here, right?
Yes.
And what your volunteers do is they repackage things in a lot of cases, don't they?
We get a lot of bulk product, so a lot of times those need to be broken down into more manageable parcels.
Mm-hmm. And this is much bigger than the space you had before.
Much bigger. We had no space before, so this is a vast improvement.
Yeah, and this is important too, because a lot of times when you're repackaging or when you're bringing in fresh produce and stuff, it has to be washed.
Yes.
And this room's special, isn't it?
It is. It's very special. This is a sanitizable room. If we need to repack bulk product, we can do that in here. Things like cereal and pasta. We can clean our produce. It's just a much more healthy environment for that type of thing.
You've got your sinks back there.
We do.
So when the fresh produce comes in, if it needs to be washed or anything needed to be trimmed up and cleaned up, it could be done there.
That's right.
Terrific.
It's very exciting.
It's going to be a new experience. Will you be able to work it with the same number of employees?
We're planning on it right now. We don't know what it's going to take to operationalize. We won't know until we get in here, so we'll see what happens.
Well, that's terrific. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thanks for helping us with this story.
No problem.
The new Central Illinois Food Bank will be moving into this facility in May, so it's coming up very soon. As far as the gardening goes, it's a little slower this year. With another Illinois story in Springfield, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of the program you've just seen, send 1995 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and when the program aired. You can also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.